Hi guys, tell me, do you know such an animal as a lizard, or rather, a chameleon? Its uniqueness is to adapt to the world around it, meaning it changes its color depending on temperature, color, and humidity. So, I am a chameleon. Yes, I can also change the color of my skin, only it happens to me without my control. I change color when I lie. Now I will tell you how it happened and how I live with such a pale feature. At the end, don't forget to like the video, write your opinion in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Let's go! My name is Cora, and I was born in a cold winter right around Christmas. My mother told me that on the day of my birth, there were traffic jams everywhere in the city. People were in a hurry to get ready for the main holiday of the year as quickly as possible. Mom and Dad also planned to spend the evening with family and friends. Even in the morning, my mother prepared delicious food, but felt strange, an incomprehensible aching pain in her lower back. And when almost everything was ready, the guests came, sat down at the table, and at 8 p.m., my mother got up from the table to go get hot food, and suddenly there was a scream from the kitchen. My mother's water broke. Dad, in panic and shock, collected the bag, took my mother by the hand, and they ran towards the car. The guests also lost their nerves a little, and some relatives jumped off and went to the hospital to get them. In general, the holiday turned out to be wonderful. I was born exactly at midnight, and my dad made a wish that I was born a special girl. And so it turned out, only my abilities showed up a little later. I grew up like everyone else. The first steps, words, then kindergarten and school. At school, like many, the first difficulties and troubles with friends and studies began. I remember the first time I brought home a deuce for an incorrectly completed task. It was a nightmare. My mom yelled at me like she'd never yelled at me in her life. She was so upset by this assessment that she even cried. I felt guilty. I wanted to fix everything, and I started studying harder. However, nothing really worked out. Well, I did not get the math. I really tried my best, and a week later, when my assignment was checked, I got 2 again. I didn't even want to go home. I could already imagine the look on my mother's face, her screams and tears, and I didn't want to be the cause of everything. I decided to just hide it. I came home and behaved as usual. We sat down for lunch, and my mother asked me how my day was. I said that everything was fine and suddenly, noticeably blushed. I certainly didn't see it, but my mother noticed it easily. I just sat like a tomato at the table. My mother asked if I was all right. I waved my head and became even redder. It felt like the kettle was boiling and the kettle was me. My mother came up to me and began to feel my forehead and face. She thought that I was ill and had a fever, but I was cold. Then my mother thought I was allergic and gave me medication. I calmed down a little. The next day, my mother got a call from school about my grades. Of course, when I arrived home, she already knew everything. Mom was furious, just like I thought. Only this time, she was angrier because I also hid it from her. I was hit with all kinds of punishments at the same time. I was deprived of TV for a month, the internet for a week, walking with my friends for 2 weeks, and in general, I was under arrest. I sat there and listened to it all, and my mother screamed. As luck would have it, on the same day, after talking to her on the way to the room, I accidentally touched the charging cable and touched my mother's phone. It was lying on the table and fell screen down. The screen cracked, and I knew I was screwed. I stepped over it on the table and silently pulled myself into the room. A minute later, I heard my mother's familiar cry of, "Ooh!" I ran out and she asked if I broke the phone, and I said no, and I became a tomato again. This time, my mother didn't touch me. She started experimenting. My mother began to guess at what moments I blush, and her logic led to the correct answer. This was the beginning of how I was already steadily changing the color of my skin with every lie. It was beneficial for everyone around me, except for me. From that moment on, my lies could be easily identified, and I didn't even have to make an effort. My mother told my father about this trick, and at first they were worried and took me to the hospital. But after passing all the tests, the doctor said that I was healthy. So we were sent home, where I sat on the bed, got a mirror, told myself lies, and looked at my skin. It was creepy. I didn't know how I was going to live with this feature. But the most frightening thing was that my friends and even teachers began to guess about it. Now, when I was called to the blackboard and told that I didn't complete my homework because I was ill, the teachers boldly gave me bad grades. My friends, when they asked for a dress that I didn't want to share, immediately realized that I was just being greedy. Then they were offended. Parents asked all the questions and waited for a reaction. Well, when I grew up even more, my problems also grew. However, one day, my feature actually saved me. The girls and I were invited to their home by a new girl from the class. Her name was Dorothy. In honor of our acquaintance and the fact that we will now study together, she decided to throw a small party at her home. We gladly agreed, bought a cake, pies, and went to her in the evening. Everything was great, to be honest. We did not think that she lived so richly. She had a luxurious house, a huge room with a lot of everything, even had a separate dressing room with huge cabinets, shelves for shoes, dresses, and a lot of mirrors. She arranged for us a room tour, after which we were invited to dinner. Her mom made an unreal chicken. Over dinner, we talked about who has some special features. Naturally, the girls immediately remembered me. Dorothy's mother, like herself, was asked to demonstrate my chip. I said my name was Rita, and then I blushed. Dorothy clapped her hands. Then her mother asked me if it was hard for me to live, because every day there are situations when telling the truth just doesn't make sense or will lead to bad consequences. I answered honestly that I had no choice, because people around me would find out the truth anyway. After dinner, we went back to Dorothy's room and looked at her photos from the previous school. Suddenly, our friend Rita asked to go to the toilet. She was gone for a long time, and I went to get her because I also needed to. On the way to the bathroom, I noticed that Rita was hanging out in Dorothy's mom's room. She went into her closet and took something out. At the sight of me, she was very scared. But then Dory's mother began to climb the stairs, and she quickly went out into the corridor and ran up to me. Rita smiled at the hostess and asked where the toilet was. We went there together, and I asked her what she took from there. Rita said that Dorothy's mother had a lot of it, and it was a lot of money for them, so she was going to give it to her mother to sell. "I'll tell you what I found on the street," Rita told me. I felt bad about all this. I shouldn't have seen it at all, but Rita was my friend, and I decided to just keep quiet. Of course, the next day, Dory's mom came to our house and started making a big fuss about me and my mom. She accused me of stealing. My mother didn't understand what was going on, and Dorothy said that Rita saw everything, that I took someone else's bracelet. Of course, my mother was just shocked by this, and then gathered herself and said that it was easy to check if it was me. I was asked a direct question whether I stole the bracelet. I said a confident no, and they looked at my skin. And then my mom asked me if I knew who did it, and I said yes. But I immediately explained that I didn't want to be a witness. It just happened. I mentioned Rita's name, and Dorothy's mother was as surprised as she was. "But she said it was you," Dory said. "I saw the two of you coming out of my bedroom, but I didn't betray it right away. When Dory asked Rita, she pointed at you," Dory's mom said. Then I told her what Rita had told me, why she had done it, and what she had planned to do with the jewelry. We all packed up and went to her house. There, Rita resisted for a long time, and then, when she saw that I did not blush when I spoke of her, she looked down and began to cry. She took the jewelry out of the room before she gave it to her mother. Her parents were ashamed and didn't know how to apologize. Dorothy's mother took hers and said she wouldn't go to the police, but she should. Rita's parents begged her not to do this. They promised to talk to their daughter. As a result, Rita and I are no longer friends, and Dorothy is now bypassed. But it taught me a lesson. The power is in the truth. I'd rather live honestly and sleep with a clear conscience, all the same.